Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me begin by reciprocating personal and professional respect for you and the other members of this committee as well, because I do think very highly of each and every person on this committee, and particularly of you, Mr. Chairman. But this is a day where we're going to disagree, and disagree very strongly. It is, as you referenced, Mr. Chairman, a sad day for me personally, for the Rules Committee, for the institution of the House, and for the American people. We're meeting today on a rule for considering articles of impeachment against a sitting President of the United States on the floor of the House of Representatives. This is not the result of a fair process, and certainly not a bipartisan one. Sadly, the Democrats' impeachment inquiry has been flawed and partisan from day one. So I guess it should come as no surprise that Democrats' preordained outcome is also flawed and partisan. 7 weeks ago, when this committee met to consider a resolution to guide the process for the Democrats' unprecedented impeachment inquiry, I warned that they were treading on shaky ground with their unfair and closed process. Reflecting on how things have played out since then reaffirms my earlier judgment that this flawed process was crafted to ensure a partisan, preordained result. Unfortunately, this entire process was tarnished further by the speed with which my Democratic colleagues on the Judiciary and Intelligence Committees have rushed to deliver their predetermined judgment, to impeach the President for something, anything, whether there are stones left unturned or whether there is any proof at all. There's no way this can or should be viewed as legitimate, certainly not by Republicans whose minority rights have been trampled on every step on the way, and certainly not by the American people observing this disastrous political show scene by scene. As I've said before, unlike any impeachment proceedings in modern history, the partisan process prescribed and pursued by Democrats is truly unprecedented. And it contradicts Speaker Pelosi's own words. Back in March of this year, she said, quote, "Impeachment is so divisive to the country that unless there's something so compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path because it divides the country," unquote. The key word in that quote is bipartisan. Indeed, during the Nixon and Clinton impeachments, the process for even opening the inquiry was considered on a bipartisan basis. Back then, both sides treated the process with the seriousness it deserved, negotiating and finding agreement across the aisle to ensure fairness and due process for all involved in the inquiries. But that's not the case today. Instead, Democrats have pushed forward using a partisan process that limited the president's right to due process, prevented the minority from exercising their rights, and charged ahead toward a vote to impeach the president whether the evidence is there or not. I suppose I shouldn't be surprised by any of this. Democrats in the House have been pushing to impeach President Trump since before he was even sworn in. In December of 2017, when a current Democratic member of the House forced a vote on impeachment resolution, 58 Democrats voted then to impeach the President Trump, even without an investigation, without any evidence to point to. And those numbers have only grown since then, to the point where the majority is now pushing forward with a final vote on impeachment, heedless of where it takes the country and regardless of whether they have proven their case. Mr. Chairman, it didn't have to be this way. When she became entrusted with the gavel over the House, this Congress, Speaker Pelosi assured us all that she would not move forward with impeachment unless it was bipartisan and unless there was a clear consensus in the country. Neither of those two commissions are present here. Indeed, the latest Real Clear Politics average of polls on impeachment shows the country evenly split, with 46.5% of Americans in favor of impeachment and 46.5% against. That is hardly what I would call a national consensus in favor of impeaching President Trump. When half of Americans are telling you that what you're doing is wrong, you should listen. I think this is especially the case given how close we are to the next election. In 11 months, the American people are going to vote on the next president of the United States. Why then are we plunging the country into this kind of turmoil and this kind of trauma now, when the voters themselves will resolve the matter one way or another less than a year from today? All it does achieve is make the political polarization and divisions in our country even worse. That makes no sense to me. Though we may be moving forward with a vote, I certainly do not believe the majority has proven its case or convinced the American people that the weeks of wasted time was worth it. And personally, I believe the articles themselves are unwarranted. The majority is seeking to remove the president over something that didn't happen, the alleged quid pro quo with the president of Ukraine. Never mind that the foreign aid went to the Ukraine as it was supposed to, and never mind that no investigations were required for the Ukraine to get the aid, and never mind that the two participants in the famous conversation, President Trump and President Zelensky, said nothing inappropriate happened. According to the majority, however, a quid pro quo that never existed is an appropriate basis for removing the president from office. And yet, even though the majority has not proven its case, and even though there's no basis for impeachment, they're still moving forward today. What I cannot discern is a legitimate reason why. Why the majority is moving forward when the process is so partisan, why they are moving forward when the American people are not with them, why they are moving forward when they haven't proven their case, and why they are moving forward when there is no basis for impeachment. Why? Why put the country through all this? It makes even less sense to me when we consider the realities of the United States Senate. We already know that the votes to convict and remove the president from office simply aren't there. Bluntly put, this is a matter that Congress as a whole cannot resolve on its own. Yet the majority is plunging forward, regardless of the needless drama or of the damage to the institution and to the country, knowing full well that at the end of the day, the president will remain in office. And for what? Scoring political points with their party's base? Again, Mr. Chairman, this does not make any sense to me. We didn't need to go this route. We didn't need to push forward on a partisan impeachment process that had only one possible result. But we are here anyway, regardless of the damage it does to the institution and regardless of how much further it divides the country. As I said at the beginning, Mr. Chairman, this is a sad day for all of us, but it is especially sad for me knowing that this day was inevitable, preordained from the start. No matter what happened, no matter where the investigations led, the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives was pushing since the day they took over to impeach President Trump. The facts don't warrant that, Mr. Chairman, and the process is unworthy of the outcome. The president should not be impeached, and I urge all members, both here in the Rules Committee and tomorrow on the House floor, to vote no. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate your comments. Obviously, we have strong disagreements. And just one technical